Let's have a look at income, total cost, profit, and loss, and how we can show this on a graph. In order to understand these concepts, let's consider the following story. Lungelo would like to start a small business selling coffee. In order to do this, she will need a coffee cart. She either needs to buy this or she needs to rent this cart, which means that for every cup of coffee that she sells, some of the money needs to go towards the cost of the cart. Firstly, renting or buying this cart will be a fixed cost. So if, for example, she is renting it at 1,000 Rand per month, then she needs to first sell enough coffees to pay off this 1,000 Rand before she can start making a profit. But remember, making each cup of coffee will also cost some money. So let's say that is 5 Rand to make the coffee, and she will need to make a pretty big markup on each cup of coffee in order to cover that 1,000 Rand and also the 5 Rand per cup. So let's say she sells that for 25 Rand each. So we have three different amounts here. We have the rent, which is a fixed cost of 1,000 Rand, and then we have the 5 and 25 Rand, and both these costs, although the one is an income and the one is a cost, are called variable costs because they can vary depending on the number of cups of coffee she sells and the cup of coffee she makes. The other thing that you should know by now is to write formulas. So let's start with something easy like the income formula. These formulas will help us to do calculations a little bit further on. So in case you're wondering why we need formulas for this, you will see in a little while. So if we say that the income is Y, the variable we use is Y, then we can say Y equals 25 Rand times X amount of cups of coffee that she sells. So here X is the coffee cups. It's always good to specify which variables you use and what they mean. So in this case, the income is Y and X is the coffee. So when we have a look at cost, I need to not only look at the variable cost, but also the fixed cost. And these two costs together are called the total cost. So if I would like to write a formula for the total cost, I'm once again working with money, so I'm going to use Y again, because in a little while I'm going to compare the income cost and the total cost. And in this case, there's 1,000 Rand, which is fixed. And then on top of that, it's also 5 Rand per cup of coffee. And because it's per cup of coffee, I multiply it by X. So in other words, she pays 1,000 Rand for the cart, and then she spends another 5 Rand for each cup of coffee that she makes afterwards. So let's have a look at how we can represent this. If you have numbers on your iPad, numbers can give you the following analysis. In numbers on your iPad, you will get the following option. You can choose break-even analysis, type in all the different amounts like your fixed cost, your variable cost, and your unit price, which is your selling price, if we can fill this in here, and it will do the calculations for you. But let's see what this program actually did, because remember, you might be asked to fill in a table in a test. So the sales here is what we call the income. And remember that your income formula was Y equal to 25X. The X obviously refers to the amounts of units sold. Therefore, you will notice that each time the units sold, for example, 5 was multiplied by 25 to get the 125 Rand. In the next example, if 10 units were sold at 25 Rand each, that's 250 Rand. If 20 cups of coffee were sold at 25 Rand each, that would be 500 Rand. And this is how the second column was calculated. So let's go to the total cost. You might remember from the previous page that our formula for this was Y equals 1,000 Rand, which is our fixed cost for the little stand that we are renting, and that it costs 5 Rand per cup of coffee to make. So when we fill in the table, obviously, even if we don't make any coffees, we still have to cover that 1,000 Rand. When I make 5 coffees at 5 Rand each, that is 25 Rand, that needs to be added to that 1,000 Rand fixed cost. If I do 10 coffees, if I make 10 coffees at 5 Rand each, that is 50 Rand. So my total cost is not only the 50 Rand for the 10 cups of coffee, but also the 1,000 Rand rental that I have to pay for my coffee cart. And this is how this column is calculated. At the end, the profit or loss is indicated, and that is every time taking my sale amount minus my total cost. So you will see for 0 cups of coffee, I have a 1,000 Rand loss because I don't have enough money to cover that 1,000 Rand fixed cost for my coffee cart. But when I sell 5 cups of coffee, I get an income of 125 Rand, meaning that I now only have a 900 Rand loss. And this is how this last column is calculated, every time taking my income and subtracting my total cost from it. You might notice something interesting when I get to 50 cups of coffee. It shows 0 Rand. That means I'm not making a loss. I'm also not making a profit. I'm just breaking even. And this is what this section can be called as well. It's called a break-even analysis. On the graph, it is indicated when the two lines cross each other. Before the point where they cross, you will see that my total cost line is higher, meaning that I make a loss. But after 50 units, which is indicated over here, I start making a profit. Remember that you can be asked to complete a table such as this one in a test or an exam and use the table to plot a graph looking like this. When you plot your graph, always indicate which line is which. So in this case, they have the blue line, which is the sales. You can also call this the income line. And we have a green line, which is the total cost line. So let's have a look at how we can calculate that break-even amount without setting up a table and drawing a graph. What you need to remember is that I have a fixed amount of 1,000 Rand that needs to be covered before I can start making a profit. The other idea that we're going to work with here is the profit per cup of coffee. And for this, you will need to remember that the selling price is 25 Rand and the cost price is 5 Rand, meaning that my profit per cup is 20 Rand. The next idea is quite profound, but once you understand this, it will make things so simple. So how many cups of coffee at a profit of 20 Rand each would you need to sell in order to cover the 1,000 Rand? This means that I'm going to take the 1,000 Rand and see how many cups of coffee at a profit of 20 Rand each I need to sell in order to break even. And this will give me 50 cups, which is exactly what I got in the table on the previous page. What I did here was take my fixed cost and I divided it by my profit per item in order to get the break-even amount. This is therefore my break-even formula. We can also use our knowledge of break-even for similar situations where we are not determining a profit or a loss, but rather choosing between options. This could be the best car rental or the best cell phone contract. So let's have a look at an example. If you would like to rent a Vespa to go for a little drive around Sea Point or Hout Bay or that area, you can do this from Cape Town Vespa Rentals. They have 2 packages. On package A, it is 350 Rand a day. You get the first 100 kilometers free, and then after that, it is 5 Rand per kilometer. On package B, it's 250 Rand per day, as well as 300 Rand insurance per day, but now you get 200 kilometers free, and it is 4 Rand for every kilometer. So that is a lot of information. How are we going to find out which package is better? What do you think it depends on? Well, obviously how far you are going to drive. So plan your route carefully before making this decision. You can try and structure this information according to the kilometers that you drive. Starting at 0 kilometers, I'm going to go up to 100 first, because remember on package A, the first 100 kilometers is free, you only have a daily charge. But on package B, the first 200 kilometers are free, and you just have the daily charge. We can also have a look at what happens after 200 kilometers, so I'm also going to write that down. I'm going to choose different colors for my different options so that we can easily compare them in our structure here below. So starting with package A, I have to pay 350 Rand per day. So even if I don't drive any amount of kilometers, for 0 it will be 350 Rand, and even at 100 kilometers it will be 350 Rand, because this section is free kilometers. You only pay your daily charge. But now from 100 to 200, then you do start paying per kilometer, and now it is 5 Rand per kilometer. But remember, because you only traveled for 100 kilometers in this section, at 200 kilometers you're only going to pay for 100 kilometers that you've driven. So let's write this calculation down. It's 350 Rand plus 5 Rand times 100 kilometers, because remember the first part was free, and that gives me 850 Rand. Just to check that I understood that method, let's also do it for 300 kilometers. Remember that you have your fixed daily charge of 350. For 300 kilometers, you will actually only pay for 200 kilometers because the first 100 was free. Don't forget that. So that is going to give me 1,350 Rand. On package B, the options look slightly different. So for 0 kilometers, remember that I have both the 250 per day and the 300 insurance per day, meaning that for 0 kilometers I pay 550. So at this point, package B is definitely more expensive. It is also 550 for 100 kilometers, because remember on this package, it is free all the way up to the first 200 kilometers. You only have to pay the daily charge. So at 200 kilometers, it is going to be 550 Rand. And now you can see that for 200 kilometers, option B is actually cheaper. But when can I calculate when these two lines will break even? My formulas seem a little complicated. In a situation like this, we will ask you to complete a table and then plot the values on a graph. From there, you can most likely read what the break-even amounts will be. On this graph, you will see that we've plotted package A and package B. Note here that for package A, from 1 to 100, it's a flat line because this is the free kilometers. For package B, our flat line is from 0 to 200 because that is our free kilometers for package B. And you'll see that I've indicated the break-even point with a black dot. Let's see if we can read what that dot is for how many kilometers. Between 100 and 200, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections, which means it goes up into intervals of 20 because it would be 100, 120, 140, 160, 180, 200. That means that this point here, where they cost exactly the same, is 140. So let's use our formulas from the previous page and check our answers. So do you still remember what we did for package A. Remember, for package A, the fixed charge was 350 Rand. After that, it would be 5 Rand for every kilometer over 100. So if I'm looking at 140 kilometers, I'm going to say 140 minus 100 free kilometers, or you can just put 40 in there if you know that answer already. And that gives me an amount of 550 Rand. I hope you can see what the amount is for package B, because this is actually very easy. It still falls into the flat section, which we know is 550 Rand because it was the insurance and the daily charge together. So package B was 550 Rand, which was just the fixed charge. And therefore at 140 kilometers, it would cost 550 Rand on both packages. Before this point, package A is cheaper, and after this point, package B is cheaper. So if you are asked any questions along those lines, please make sure that you interpret it carefully and express when each package would be cheaper.